crisis and opportunity. We appreciate you all being here. Thank you for taking time. You'll have 7 minutes, and then we'll have 7 minutes for questions. And I just want to thank you in advance. I know a lot of work has gone into this PIP, and I just want to let you know that it's possible that not everything will be funded, but it doesn't mean you wouldn't get more opportunity for funding later. So we really appreciate you all being here. Diane, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. When I graduated from college in 1989, my school gave each student this framed print, which are the Chinese characters, we were told, for both crisis and opportunity. It's been about 25 years since then, and a quick Google search, I learned that these characters actually don't mean crisis and opportunity, they just mean crisis. So while the characters no longer have the wisdom that we thought they did, the reason my school gave us this gift does have that wisdom, which was to teach us that in a time of crisis that we should not despair, but rather to look for opportunities, crisis opportunities. For domestic violence victims, finding opportunities in crisis is especially challenging, and it's often challenging because of the fear, the dependency, and the isolation that they experience. But showing victims opportunities in their times of crisis is not just helpful, it can really save lives. And that's why we are asking you in our PIP to help us provide crisis opportunities at 2 very specific moments. And I'm going to start with the first, which is at the time that patrol arrives to the scene of a domestic violence call. And I want you to please read that quote that's up on the screen, because this officer made a connection with a victim that provided her with the opportunity to learn that she did not deserve to be beaten. And by having that opportunity to learn that, potentially for the first time, this victim was able to be open to some life-saving advice and be able to make safer decisions for herself and for her children. In the fall, Metro Police will be implementing a program called the Lethality Assessment Program, which will insert opportunities at that exact same time for domestic violence victims. That opportunity will be to teach domestic violence victims about their level of risk and provide crisis intervention services right then and there. Let me show you how this will work. I'm going to use an example of a victim who calls the police because her boyfriend vandalized her car. Currently, when police would respond to that type of situation, they will be focusing their questions on the vandalism, since that's the reason for the 911 call. Under the LAP, police will ask more questions, such as about, has there ever been forced sex, strangulation, is there a gun in the home? And as you can see, this victim would indicate that she is at high risk of being murdered. And that is why the LAP will focus on those questions. By focusing on these questions and connecting victims to the YWCA hotline right there at the scene to talk to a crisis counselor, we can expect, as other cities have, to see a reduction in domestic violence homicides and aggravated assaults. The second crisis opportunity that we are asking you to invest in is the orders of protections that victims, and that was the cost of that, is the order of protections that victims petition the night court commissioners for. That is one of the highest risk times for domestic violence victims, because that is when the offender is put on notice that the victim is leaving the relationship. It is critical that victims receive advocacy services at this time, because leaving your offender is the highest risk time for all victims of domestic violence. Not all victims receive this type of services in a supportive and safe location and with the assistance of an advocate. Let me show you what I mean. Currently, most domestic violence victims get their order of protections after hours, and they have to go to night court, where the commissioner sits behind a bulletproof glass. We can agree with this quote, that a commissioner needs to sit behind a bulletproof glass. It is not a safe environment for a victim of domestic violence to get their order of protection and receive the services that they need. In contrast, when victims are able to go to the Jean Crow Advocacy Center and receive the assistance of an advocate, this is where they go, and receive an advocate who will help them with safety planning, connecting them to shelter and other services that they need to be safe. We have a lot of good feedback about that experience from victims. Here are some quotes that they have told us, as well as some of the outcomes, and granted orders of protections and a decrease in victims not coming to court to get their final order of protection. Currently, Morning Star Sanctuary helps fund, through their private fundraising dollars, an advocate some of the time at night court. In order for Metro, not Morning Star, to fully fund advocacy services, it would cost that amount. And this should be a function of Metro. Just as we would not rely on a nonprofit fundraising dollars for ambulance services, similarly, we should not rely on a nonprofit's fundraising dollars in order to provide crisis intervention services for victims obtaining an order of protection. For Morning Star to provide 24/7 advocacy after hours for the JCAC would cost $174,000, and for all those orders of protections to be done at the Gene Crow Advocacy Center, the Sheriff's Office would need $260,000 in order to have proper security in that building. You asked us when we wrote these PIPs, who is affected by this PIP? Well, when it comes to domestic violence, everyone is affected, locally, statewide, and nationally. We have joined together in our presentation a lot of partners to serve domestic violence victims. In total, we're asking for $628,000 to create potential life-saving opportunities to respond to victims in crisis.
Thank you. Panelists?
Costs appear to go down in year 2 and 3 instead of staying the same. What drives the cost reductions in years 2 and 3?
Well, we have a few things that drive the reduction in cost. Some things will already be provided and be done, such as revamping and purchasing a new hotline system for the YWCA is a one-time expense, as well as the money Morning Star Sanctuary needs to add 8 shelter beds. That would be a one-time expense.
It seems the main thing missing is contract security is only needed year 1 and not years 2 and 3.
Oh, we will be building a family justice center on Murfreesboro Road, and at the current time, we are anticipating and hoping that that will be a 24/7 facility. And so once that project is completed, the order protection after-hour services will be provided at the Murfreesboro Road location. That project is about a year and a half away from completion, we hope.
Okay, so that's the key difference.
That is the key difference.
What does the new hotline system do differently than the current system?
I'm going to invite Tracy DeTomasi with the YWCA to answer that question.
Right now our system is about 8 years old, and it drops calls really often, especially when the weather goes bad or the electricity goes out. We can't always answer the hotline at that time. We're also looking to put in a texting system so victims can text the hotline, and so by upgrading it, we would be preparing for that increase in technology.
And why would that be at the Y as opposed to somewhere else?
Right now, we are the partners for the lethality assessment program. And so we partner with Metro to really provide those services for when the lethality assessment and all of the officers call on scene. We will take those calls.
This is what we arranged in a grant we received from the federal government to help us roll out the lethality assessment program, funded by the Office of Violence Against Women, and we've contracted with the Maryland network to use their model.
Proposing a policy policy change of where the night court is located. Are courts involved in this process? Have they been consulted on this, on the night court?
We currently do orders of protection out of the Gene Crow Advocacy Center. We have a live video feed that goes into night court. The Domestic Violence Division Police Department also has one. So that is a common practice that's done Monday through Friday during the hours of 8 to 4, 5 o'clock. This would just be extending that during after hours and on the weekends.
You mentioned 24-hour security for the Sheriff's
Yes.
Office. What about the staff of the JCAC? Are you going to have to reschedule them so that they're available on the weekends? How are you going to deal with that? Or is that an overtime issue? How are you going to deal with that?
That would not be staffed by the Gene Crow Advocacy Center. Right now, we work in partnership with Morning Star Sanctuary to provide advocates. The Gene Crow Advocacy Center provides the advocates during normal and traditional business days and hours, and Morning Star Sanctuary provides advocates for a portion of the after-hours time. This PIP would be extended extending Morning Star's ability to staff the remaining hours in full. That's really about the other 20% that isn't covered, 32 hours a week.
And you're also asking for additional beds, is that correct?
Yes. Due to most cities, when they implement a lethality assessment program, they see an increase both in hotline calls and shelter bed demand. And so Morningstar Sanctuary right now has probably the most cost-efficient mechanism to create 8 beds quickly and somewhat easily, because they have an existing structure on the building, on their land that can be used for that. John Pugh with Morningstar is here if you have any further questions on that.
Any questions? No?
2/3 go to Morningstar, 1/3 to the YWCA, and then on the capital, it's about a 50-50, part to Morningstar for beds and part to YWCA to upgrade.
And I'm looking at my financial officer, Shelby Moody, for confirmation on that.
That sounds about correct.
Okay, just wanted to check.
The capital would be, well, the 50,000 and the 76,000.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
The one-time fee on the security, and then the report curring is about 200.
And if for any reason the Murfreesboro Road facility is delayed, there would be an additional $265 year 2, or some portion of the year till it's open?
That would be in order to maintain the 24/7 security, yes.
Which I think you would need if you were going to continue the program, right?
Yes, especially so because during the reconstruction of night court, all those services are being moved to a portable. So it's being moved to even a less trauma-informed and secure environment for victims.
Okay.
I do have a follow-up question. In your opening remarks, you talked about how Metro needed to invest in these services, just as it does in firefighting or anything else, but we obviously have outside partners involved. What is your opinion on what the mix should be regarding what we're doing inside of Metro versus what we're having the nonprofits do?
Particularly when it comes to critical moments that have life-saving function, provided that are operated through Metro operations, we are asking that those be fully Metro funded. So an order of protection is a tool that Metro provides and state that provides for victims to get to safety. And as I said, that is absolutely the highest risk time for victims to be murdered when they're leaving the offender. They absolutely need to have the coaching on how to stay safe and keep their children safe. So without an advocate present, they will not get that coaching. They will literally just stand in front of the night court commissioner who will either grant or deny that order of protection, and that's it.
So you're saying the role of the nonprofits being more focused on?
I think that Metro needs to support the nonprofits in this function. Again, Morningstar Sanctuary, and John Pugh can talk to this, is a small agency, and we are relying on their fundraising ability and capacity to provide this service, which maybe next year they won't be able to. We do support it with community enhancement funds, but it leaves an awfully big gap for an agency of this size.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you
all.
very much for
Appreciate
your
y'all.
time.
Thank you.